is it? Is it morally acceptable for one human being to own another human being? That seems to be the question that is posed by countless atheists who, of course, expect you to reply in the negative. And it is morally wrong to buy and sell human beings. The question, however, is disingenuous at its core. There is no concern for the plight of slaves, for according to the law there are none. It is not a question designed to make you think about freeing your own slaves as you have none. It is not about any current event at all, as slavery was abolished in the United States over 150 years ago. So what then is this question about? It is asked by atheists for the simple purpose of trying to bring the Bible and God into ridicule. After all, should you say that it is not morally wrong, they will attack you as being the biggest fool and bigot on the planet. You will be excoriated without end until you try to slink back under the rock from whence you crawled. But if you do answer according to the expected norm, they will then attack the Bible and God and question why you would believe in something that clearly advocates for slavery. Why would God put into the Bible something that is morally wrong? He himself must be immoral, and therefore nothing about the Bible and nothing about God is worth believing. Jesus was asked, "Is it lawful to pay tribute to Caesar?" Oh, can you imagine the wringing of hands? We've got him now. The Jews hated Caesar and all things Roman. On another occasion, a young woman was brought in having been taken in the very act of adultery. Moses said we should stone her. What sayest thou? Again, the question was to try to trick this Jesus into a corner and to end the infatuation of the public with his teaching. However, when it comes to questions that entrap, Jesus was pretty good at it himself. The baptism of John, from whence was it? Of God or of man? So, back to the question of the day, what are its implications? First of all, one must ask, whose morality? Morality is not universal. Your morals are not the same as the morals of the Amish or of the Muslim. The morals of today are different in so many areas than they were of yesteryear. Look in the camera, Chaco. This is Chaco. Young people live together today without marriage. We used to call that shacking up. There was a time in the not-too-distant past that such would not only be reprehensible, but it would also be illegal in many areas of the country. The same could be said of interracial marriages. Should the morality of those days be accepted as the standard? Or is today's morality more moral? One could find any number of areas in which morals have changed. To simply expect that the correct response to the question of owning another human being is moral should be that it is not, needs to be couched in a specific frame of time and situation. The atheist wants to insist that ownership of another human being is immoral, and therefore God is immoral, and therefore we can and should toss him overboard and refuse anything that he says as being a good example. We should eliminate the Bible and any religion that is based upon the Bible. There should be no faith in God, and any who wish to worship such a God is to be branded as the worst example of immorality and stupidity. But let's consider a little bit further the question and its implications. If God has endorsed slavery and slavery is wrong, then God is wrong also, and likely if he's wrong in that, he's wrong in all things. However, slavery only became wrong after the Emancipation Proclamation. We'll just use that as a point of reference. But in the forming of our country, the framers of the Constitution pinned the words so indelibly inscribed into the fabric of who we are. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And yet, for the next 85 plus years, many of those very men owned slaves, and those who did not were complicit in the practice. The Civil War itself was not even fought to end slavery, but rather merely to hold the Union together. The abolition of slavery was almost an afterthought. So what about the morals of Abraham Lincoln, who would have been perfectly content to allow the continued practice of slavery had he not been backed into a corner? Now, if we throw out the entire Bible and God himself, then to be perfectly consistent, we should also throw out the entire Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and indeed our entire government, as they too were guilty of gross immorality. And obviously, any immorality taints and voids any other idea that such an immoral person may attempt to promote. As for the idea of owning another human, the concept is actually very much a part of our everyday lives. We speak as husbands of my wife, or as parents, my children. To whom does my wife belong? Well, in the laws of England in the 17 and 1800s, the law was that the wife belonged to the husband. Her individuality ceased because she became his. That's fine in most instances, but what if you tire of your wife and want a divorce? That could be expensive. There was a practice that the husband would put a rope around his wife's neck, lead her to the auction, and offer her for sale to the highest bidder. I'll grant that the accuracy of this story may or may not be true, as it was listed on the internet, but it does point out the fairly common idea that there was a certain amount of ownership when it came to one's wife. That's why the dowry was established. That's where the custom of asking the father for the daughter's hand in marriage originated. So, owning another human being is not automatically an immoral concept. One last thought, and that is concerning the atheist's response. Christians usually have some very weak answers as to slavery in the Bible. And that's because we are trying to answer a fool. Anytime someone questions your faith in God and in the Bible, don't try to convince them of the truth. They have closed their eyes and their ears, and God has turned them over to a reprobate mind. Leave it at that. Thank you.